The sun beat down mercilessly over a jegonal market, baking the pavement into a cracked mosaic of heat and grit. The air was thick with exhaust fumes, grilled meat smoke, and the sharp cries of hawkers pushing their wares. Children wove through the crowd, barefoot and wild, their laughter clashing with the sharp blare of horns and vendors yelling for attention. In the middle of this vibrant chaos, on a forgotten patch of dusty concrete between a pepper cellar and a bus stop, a 12-year-old boy named Zion Okoro danced like his soul was on fire. His shirt hung off one shoulder, torn and faded beyond color, and his shoes were mismatched. One sandal, one broken sneaker, but on his feet they didn't matter. He spun, leapt, popped his shoulders to a rhythm only he could hear. His entire body moved with the intensity of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. In front of him, a plastic ice cream bowl sat with a few scattered coins clinking inside. Some passers-by dropped small change. Others jeered or shook their heads. One woman sneered, "Go home, boy. No future in this nonsense." But Zion didn't stop, couldn't stop. He danced through the humiliation, through the sweat and dust, through the ache in his knees, and the hunger twisting in his stomach. This was his stage, his rebellion, his last thread of hope. Nearby, parked at the edge of the market chaos, a sleek black SUV idled silently, tinted windows masking its occupants. Inside, in the cool hush of leather and air conditioning, a woman watched, elegant, composed, and unreadable behind large sunglasses. She didn't speak. She just observed, eyes fixed on the boy with the mismatched shoes and the fire in his movement. Her manicured finger tapped slowly, rhythmically, against the tinted glass, betraying something: intrigue, emotion, maybe memory. She didn't open the door. She didn't roll down the window. She simply watched, expression unreadable. Then, as Zion landed one final spin and bowed, breath heaving, dust rising around him like mist, the SUV quietly pulled away. He didn't see it. He had no idea that someone had seen him, really seen him, that the silent witness behind the glass would return, and that this day, under the brutal sun of Ajiganol, was the unnoticed beginning of everything that would follow. Zion Okoro, just 12 years old, lived in a crumbling one-room shack tucked behind a noisy mechanic workshop in the heart of The room smelled of engine grease, damp clothes, and sometimes bitter herbs his grandmother brewed for her constant coughing fits. Mama Neka, frail and fading, was all he had left in the world. His parents had perished in a gas explosion when he was just 6, a tragic accident that left the boy wide-eyed and orphaned overnight. Since then, life had hardened him, but not broken him. He sold sachet water during the day, washed car mirrors at busy junctions, and danced, always danced, whenever he could. Zion had no formal training, no leotards or mirrored studio, just sheer instinct and burning passion. He would sneak peeks at music videos on roadside TV screens outside electronics shops, memorizing moves with surgical precision. Sometimes he'd mime routines behind the building, spinning on worn slippers, sweating and smiling through the ache. The first time he saw a pirated clip of the dance theater of Lagos performing Awakening, he sat frozen. The way the dancers moved, elegant, fierce, storytelling with every limb, it set something loose in him. Since that day, he had dreamed of that stage, though it felt a lifetime away. Nestled in a world he had no key to enter, each coin he earned in the market went toward food or his grandmother's medicine. Some days, he ate nothing, but Mama had her pills. He never complained. When people jeered as he danced, "You think all this, Shakara, go carry you out of here." He ignored them. He'd heard it all. "Now dance, go build house for your mama, go find real work." But Zion believed. Deep down, where the fire never dimmed, he believed movement could change his life. Across town, in the manicured calm of Ikoyi, Another life unfolded. Alicia Freeman, age 42, returned to Lagos after nearly 2 decades abroad. A British Nigerian choreographer renowned across Europe, Alicia had once been the star of London's Royal Contemporary Ensemble. She had danced on stages most Nigerian dancers only dreamed of, but life off stage had not been as graceful. After a bitter divorce and the death of her own mother, Alicia sought reconnection with home, with self, with purpose. So she came back to Nigeria to launch the Lagos Dance Conservatory, hoping to build something new, something raw and honest. But weeks into the project, she felt disillusioned. The audition halls were filled with privileged kids, polished, perfectly trained, but hollow. Their movements were correct, but soulless. She wanted grit. She wanted hunger. She wanted the kind of dancer whose body told stories, not just steps. One blazing Tuesday afternoon, as her driver inched through congested Ajegunle traffic, Alicia sat in the back seat, restless and distracted, scrolling through notes. Then, something caught her eye, a blur of motion on the sidewalk. A boy, spinning, popping, moving like liquid fire, torn clothes, mismatched shoes, but his energy was magnetic. She lowered her sunglasses, eyebrows raised. "Stop the car," she said suddenly. The driver hesitated, surprised. "Madam, here." "Yes, right here." She peered out. Zion was dancing like the world had narrowed to this very moment. A crowd half watched, half mocked him, but he didn't care. He leaped, froze, dropped to the ground, rolled up, and struck a pose, sweat glistening on his forehead. Alicia's heart did something strange, twisted and softened. "That boy," she said, softly, almost to herself. "Who is he?" The driver shrugged. "He dey here every time, ma. Small pickin' way, dance like say him dey mad. No papa, no mama. Nah, so he dey hustle." Alicia didn't respond. She just watched. Not the kind of watching that comes from curiosity, but the kind that recognized something it had almost forgotten, the hunger, the spark, the truth buried under struggle. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of something real. And as Zion landed his final move, bowing with the poise of a performer who knew nothing of luxury but everything of resilience, Alicia made a silent decision. She would find him again. Alicia returned the next afternoon, the image of the boy still lingering in her mind like an unfinished melody. This time, she didn't just sit in the tinted safety of her SUV, she stepped out. The market air slapped her with its thick scent of roasted corn, sweat, and diesel. It was chaotic, loud, and alive. As she walked toward the dusty patch where Zion had danced the day before, heads turned. A tall, elegant woman in pressed linen pants and designer sunglasses didn't belong here, and everyone knew it. But she didn't flinch. Zion noticed her from the corner of his eye. He was in mid-spin, bare feet kicking up dust, shirt clinging to his back with sweat. He paused for half a second, caught off guard. The woman from the black car. She looked like the kind of person who gave money or reported you to authorities. Still, he kept dancing. Maybe she was just another curious onlooker. Alicia said nothing that day. She watched again for several minutes. Then, just as silently as she had arrived, she turned and left. On the third day, she returned once more. This time alone, no car, no driver. Zion stood near his usual spot, his plastic bowl already half full. He saw her coming and tensed up, eyes wary. She didn't look like the market type. Rich people usually didn't return, especially not 3 times. She stopped a few feet in front of him. "Where did you learn to move like that?" she asked. Zion narrowed his eyes. "Nowhere. I just do it." His tone was defensive, clipped, like someone used to being mocked or tested. Alicia didn't press. She reached into her bag, pulled out a small cream-colored card, and handed it to him. "Auditions. Sunday, 9 a.m. sharp. If you're late, don't bother." Zion looked at the card as if it might disappear in his hands. Lagos Dance Conservatory was printed in gold letters. He blinked. Surely this was a joke. Why him? Before he could ask any questions, she was already walking away. That evening, Zion clutched the card the whole way home. When he got to the shack, Mama Nika was coughing, huddled under a threadbare wrapper. He sat beside her on the floor and placed the card in her hand like it was a treasure map. She squinted to read it. Her eyes watered, not from sickness this time, but something deeper. "This might be your miracle, my son," she whispered, placing her hand on his cheek. Zion didn't sleep that night. His heart beat like a drum, part fear, part hope. He'd never been inside any building as fine as the one printed on the card. But maybe, just maybe, when Sunday came, he woke before dawn. He folded his only clean shirt and placed it on the mat beside him. He looked over at Mama Nika, ready to wake her, to tell her he was going to dance for people who mattered. But something was wrong. Her breathing was shallow. Sweat covered her face. Her skin was burning. He shook her gently. "Mama, Mama." She didn't respond. Zion panicked. He ran barefoot through the alleys, banging on doors, screaming for help. Eventually, one of the local mechanics agreed to take them to the nearby clinic on his Okta. Zion rode with her cradled against his chest, the card forgotten in his pocket. He sat in the clinic for hours, praying, pacing. By the time the nurse said she was stable, the clock had long struck noon. The audition was over. Zion stood outside the clinic, staring at the gold-lettered card in his hand. It fluttered in the wind like a promise lost. Zion arrived at the Lagos Dance Conservatory the next morning just after dawn, his eyes sunken from lack of sleep, his shirt wrinkled, dust still clinging to his skin from the market roads he'd run through. He clutched the audition card like a lifeline. His heart pounded as he stepped onto the pristine white marble of the conservatory's entrance. A world so unlike the one he had ever known. The front desk receptionist, a slim woman, in red lipstick and a sleek bun, looked him up and down with undisguised skepticism. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone already dismissive. Zion cleared his throat, suddenly aware of how he looked, how he smelled. I missed the audition yesterday, but I got this." He lifted the card, voice trembling. "Please, I just need one chance." The woman barely glanced at the card. "Auditions were yesterday. If you missed it, that's not our fault." Zion stood frozen, hope slipping through his fingers like sand. Then a voice cut through the air, crisp, clipped, unmistakably firm. "I said Sunday, not Monday." Alicia stood at the top of the stairwell, arms crossed, watching him. Her expression was unreadable, not quite angry, not surprised either, just ... firm. Zion's lips trembled. "Please, I tried. I swear, my grandmother, she was sick. I couldn't leave her." For a long, suffocating pause, Alicia said nothing. She seemed to study him like she was trying to decide if he was lying. Then, almost reluctantly, she nodded. "Once, you have 1 minute." Zion didn't wait. He dropped his bag and stepped onto the polished floor. No music, no warm-up. He just moved. Every spin, every stomp, every leap carved straight from desperation and instinct. He wasn't graceful, but he was raw, honest. His limbs were wild, imperfect, but his passion was louder than the silence in the room. When he finished, Alicia didn't clap, didn't smile. She just turned and walked away. Zion stood there, stunned. Was that a yes? A no? Later that evening, while buying paracetamol at the local chemist, his phone, a second-hand Nokia he shared with Mama Nika, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're in. Youth Scholarship Program. Report Tuesday, 6 a.m. sharp." He ran all the way home. The first day at the conservatory felt like stepping into a foreign country. Zion wore an oversized t-shirt and borrowed sweatpants. The other kids wore fitted uniforms, with matching branded duffel bags, ballet shoes, and sleek hair. Their parents dropped them off in Jeeps and Benzes. They had drivers who waited with water bottles and air conditioning. Zion walked in with cracked sandals and a peanut butter sandwich in a reused bread wrapper. They noticed. The kids stared. Is he the janitor's son? No, he's that scholarship boy from the slum. Laughter rippled through the hallway like poison. He ignored. It tried to, but it grew louder each day. In class, he struggled to follow choreography taught in French ballet terms. His body understood rhythm, not form. His instructors corrected him constantly. And Coreed, a tall, cocky boy with years of training and a lineage of professional dancers, made it worse. Your legs too bent, street boy. This isn't a jugunal. During one rehearsal, Coreed deliberately bumped him during a lift, making Zion fall. The entire class laughed. Zion didn't just fall to the floor, he fell through it. Shame burned his skin like acid. He ran out of the studio, past the polished hallways and glass doors, all the way home. He collapsed into Mama Nika's arms, sobbing. He couldn't say the words, didn't have to. She held him, humming softly until his breath steadied. When he could finally speak, he whispered, I don't belong there, Mama. They don't want me there. Mama Nika tilted his face to hers. Her eyes were tired but fierce. My son, don't. Let their world scare you. Let your feet speak louder. The next morning, Zion returned. He didn't say a word. He stretched quietly, focused. He ignored the sneers, the whispers, the sideways glances. He danced with intent, with fire. Days became weeks. His technique sharpened. He watched YouTube videos late into the night, mimicking moves in their tiny room. His body changed, grew leaner, stronger, faster. Slowly, Alicia started noticing. She never praised him, but she corrected him less, nodded occasionally. Once, after a particularly emotional freestyle, she lingered in the studio longer than usual. What are you dancing for? She asked quietly. He didn't know how to answer. To breathe, he finally said. She nodded once, then walked away. But Zion was watching her too. He noticed she never smiled. She never touched the students. She taught with precision, but no warmth. One afternoon, while sitting near the admin hallway, he overheard two senior staff whispering, they say she lost her son a few years ago, drowned during summer in London. Boy was only 12, same age as that scholarship boy. Poor woman never recovered. Zion froze. Suddenly, Alicia made sense. Her silence, her severity, her eyes that always looked like they were hiding rain. From then on, he danced not just to prove himself, but as if his movement might reach the grief she never spoke of. He didn't know if she'd ever truly see him, but for the first time, he saw her. The conservatory buzzed with energy as preparations for the annual gala reached fever pitch. It was the biggest night of the year, a lavish event filled with foreign scouts, government officials, media outlets, and top-tier donors. Everyone knew that a standout performance could mean a scholarship abroad, a contract, or even viral fame. For Alicia, it was more than an event. It was her statement to Lagos, to the dance world, and perhaps to herself, that brilliance could rise from dust if given discipline. The rehearsal room became a battlefield of sweat, music, and ambition. Alicia reviewed solo assignments with precision. Coreed, as expected, was given the lead. Polished, well-trained, and hailing from one of Lagos' elite families, he had always been her safe bet. Zion, though improving rapidly, was still considered too raw, too unpredictable. He was placed as Coreed's understudy, a silent nod to his progress, but a clear message, you're not ready. Zion accepted it without complaint, though the quiet burn of disappointment simmered beneath his skin. Then, 3 nights before the gala, chaos struck. During an Instagram live session where Khalid showed off mid-air pirouettes to his thousands of followers, he landed poorly and twisted his ankle. The video went viral, not for the flair, but for the sickening sound of pain that followed. By the next morning, the news spread through the conservatory like wildfire. Khalid was out. Panic gripped the faculty. Alicia's face was stone when she entered rehearsal that morning, her jaw tight, her clipboard trembling slightly in her hands. She didn't speak for several minutes. In the corner, an assistant director leaned over and whispered, "Zion knows. The choreography, every beat, every step. He's ready." Alicia's eyes flicked to the back of the room, where Zion stood still, lips slightly parted. She said nothing for a moment, as though caught in a battle with herself. Then she nodded once. "Zion, your lead now. We rehearse from the top." Zion blinked. He wanted to shout, to leap, to cry, but all he did was nod. He threw himself into practice like a man possessed. Morning till night, he rehearsed each phrase of choreography until it etched into his muscles. He danced until blisters bled through his socks, until his sweat soaked every stitch of his uniform. Alicia pushed him harder than ever, dissecting angles, breath counts, transitions. But this time, her tone wasn't distant. It was personal. There were moments, brief, fleeting, where their eyes met and something passed between them. A silent pact. They were no longer broken halves orbiting their grief. They were building something. Finally, gala night arrived. The auditorium glowed with chandeliers and murmured elegance. Celebrities mingled with diplomats. Cameras flashed. The Lagos elite poured champagne and waited to be dazzled. Backstage, Zion trembled slightly as he stood in the wings. The other dancers whispered encouragements, some shocked at how calm he looked. Alicia approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder, her first gesture of warmth. "Don't dance like them," she said softly. "Dance like you." Then the music began. Zion stepped onto the stage. The lights blinded him momentarily. The room fell into expectant silence. He closed his eyes, breathed, and danced. Every movement sliced through the air like truth. His limbs told stories of dusty market streets, of hunger in the belly and fire in the soul, of loss, of love for a grandmother who stitched his dreams together, of that little boy spinning 4 coins while strangers jeered. He danced grief into rage, and rage into grace. He moved like thunder, not neat, not perfect, but unforgettable. His rhythm bent time. The music didn't guide him, he led it by. The end, the hall was breathless. Then, a second later, applause exploded like a dam breaking. People stood, cheered, some wept. Scouts scribbled frantically. Phones flashed. Cameras zoomed in. Backstage, Alicia watched from the curtain, her arms folded across her chest, but her eyes wet with tears she didn't bother to wipe away. For the first time in years, she felt something crack inside her, not pain, but pride, not grief, but healing. In that moment, on that stage, Zion didn't just dance, he arrived. After the gala, the air backstage was electric with excitement. Congratulations echoing off every wall, but Zion stood still, overwhelmed, trying to process the flood of emotions threatening to break him. Amid the noise and celebration, Alicia approached him quietly, her heels clicking softly against the tiled floor. She didn't smile, but there was a softness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She looked at him for a long moment before finally speaking, her voice low but steady. "You reminded me what dance is for," she said. "Not perfection, purpose." Zion's lips quivered as the weight of her words sank in. She handed him a crisp, white envelope, and inside it, a letter confirming a full scholarship, not just for his continued training at the conservatory, but for his secondary education and potential placement in a dance academy abroad. She was investing in his future, not just as a dancer, but as a person. He stared at it, then at her, and the tears came before he could stop them. He moved toward her with trembling arms, and before he could hesitate, he whispered, "Thank you, Ma." He hugged her tightly. For a heartbeat, she stiffened, caught off guard by the raw affection. But then, slowly, cautiously, she raised her arms and hugged him back. It wasn't a long embrace, but it was real, and it broke something open in both of them. From the corner, Mama Nika stood with her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders, watching the scene through glistening eyes. Her frail frame leaned on her cane, but her face shone with pride and gratitude. Her grandson, the barefoot boy who once danced for coins, was now being honored for his talent and spirit. The street kid had found a stage, and more importantly, someone who believed in him. In the months that followed, Zion's life transformed. He became the conservatory's rising star, drawing attention not just for his skill, but for his story, one of grit, survival, and grace. He didn't let fame or opportunity isolate him. Instead, he began volunteering his time to help other children from Ajegunle and nearby communities, teaching them basic dance and inviting them into rehearsals. Alicia, moved by his dedication, launched a new program, the Street to Stage Initiative, designed to scout, nurture, and fund raw talent from underserved communities. The program bore Zion's fingerprints, his resilience, his fire, his humility, in every young dancer who stepped barefoot onto polished floors. Alicia saw a reflection of the boy who reminded her why she fell in love with movement in the first place. Zion never forgot where he came from. He still visited the same square, in Ajegunle, where he once danced for survival, sometimes performing impromptu for the kids, handing out water, sachets, and encouragement. He wasn't just chasing a dream anymore, he was becoming someone else's miracle. And Alicia, once hardened by grief, found healing in watching him rise, not as a substitute for what she lost, but as proof that new beginnings can be born. From BROKENNESS. Months later, the grand halls of the National Theatre of Lagos hummed with anticipation. The stage, bathed in golden light, awaited its next star, and for the first time, that star was a boy from Ajegunle who once danced barefoot on dusty streets. Backstage, Zion stood still, dressed in a shimmering costume tailored just for him, his nerves a quiet storm beneath his calm expression. Alicia approached him gently, holding a small brooch, a delicate silver piece shaped like a bird in flight. Her fingers trembled slightly as she fastened it to his chest. "It was my son's," she said, her voice low, heavy with memory. "He would have loved you." Zion didn't speak. He only nodded, eyes shining, holding the weight of her trust like a sacred gift. Then, without another word, he turned toward the stage. As he stepped into the light, the world melted away. He glanced into the crowd, and there she was, Mama Nika, dressed in her finest wrapper, seated in the front row, hands clasped over her chest. Her eyes locked on him with pure, unfiltered pride. Her smile, wide and trembling, held years of sacrifice, prayer, and unwavering belief. For a moment, the chaos of his past flickered behind his eyes. The hunger, the rejection, the laughter of people who told him he'd never amount to anything. And then, he danced. Each movement was a revelation, a declaration. He was no longer the boy who spun for spare change under the jeers of strangers. He was no longer dancing to survive. He was dancing to live, to speak, to honor everything they said he couldn't be. The audience held its breath, captivated. Alicia stood in the wings, eyes wet but steady, her heart beating with every step he took. Zion's journey had not just transformed him, it had lit a path for others. Fade out.